You're about to listen to a highlight from The Last Word with Matt Cooper. You can listen back to any of our shows from the last 5 days in full through the media player on the Today FM website or through the Today FM Android and iPhone apps. Deirdre Cullen from the CSO, thank you for joining us. Tell us, how many people do you reckon, or how many households have not received their census form for next Sunday's census?
You know, Matt, I'm on the radio and I'm trying to give a really positive picture that we feel almost everybody has their census form by now. Possibly 1%, I said this morning, may not, which would be about 20,000 dwellings, but we actually think it's less than that now. So we're really into the very tail end of it. A couple of thousand households out there may not have received their form by now. And our message to them is you're obliged by law to fill out and return a census form. So if you haven't got one, please contact us on 1850 2016 04.
OK, those who haven't got it, why wouldn't they have it? Is it mainly the apartment block issue?
That's what we feel. Possibly a couple of dwellings with electronic gates, but it's mostly the apartment complexes where the enumerators are going in. And because it's a hand delivery model, they need to get up onto the corridor and knock on the door. That's been challenging for them. After 3 or 4 visits, if they can't make contact, they will eventually put it in the letterbox, but then the letterboxes can be jammed full of junk mail, and so that's proving challenging. They will have left a calling card with their phone number on it. So we say to people, look out for that calling card, phone the enumerator. They're working so hard. So reach out to them. And if you can't get in touch with them, get in touch with us.
OK. Some people want to know as well, on Sunday, say, for example, if they're going away on holidays, do they fill out the form in advance? Or maybe if, say, somebody in the family goes away on a work on Sunday afternoon, is due back on Tuesday or Wednesday or comes back the following weekend, but they live in their home most times. Do they fill out that they're there?
So the way the Irish census works is it's everybody who is in Ireland on Sunday night. So if you have a spouse or somebody in your family who's away on Sunday night, if they're up in Donegal, they'll be enumerated up there. And on your census form, if it's back in Dublin, you put them down as an absent person. So they still go on your census form and they're still a usual resident and they're part of your family. If the entire household is out of the country, that's the only instance in the Irish census where you're not enumerated. But if that is the case, you have to tell your enumerator where you're going to be and you have to sign a declaration to that effect. So it's not enough to say to your enumerator, I won't be here, I'm not doing it. You have to engage with the enumerator. You have to tell them where you're going to be. And they may even look for evidence of that.
OK, what's the fill-out rate? Because I'm supposed a lot of people are suspect that a lot of people just couldn't be bothered. And particularly maybe if they don't have English as a first language or Irish as a first language, they might decide not to spend the time filling out all the forms.
Yeah, so that's not our experience at all. And in our experience, and this is the 4th census I've worked on, Irish people are very cooperative with the census. We get excellent response rates, up to 98, 99% on every single question. We counted 125,000 Polish nationals last time, so we have no evidence to suggest that foreign nationals cooperate less than other people. You know, the odd person might leave one question blank, you know, if they have a particularly difficult with it. The enumerator will check the form when he or she collects it and they'll draw your attention, you know, if they see questions left blank. But in our experience, most people just pick up the biro, they fill it out, they understand what it's about, they get it, and the data, remember, is there for them to use. So the 2011 census data is up there on the CSO website, 46 tables of data for every town and village in Ireland on our SatMap application. A wonderful resource, and it's free for every citizen in the country to use. OK, there are people who want to know, is there an online option that they could fill out electronically? Not this time. We had hoped to, but resources just didn't allow us to put in the investment and to develop an online option. They've been doing internet census in Canada, Australia, New Zealand for 2 and 3 censuses now. It's certainly our intention to have an internet option in 2021. OK, listener wants to know, are the people collecting the census PCI certified? There's a lot of confidential information in my area. It's the local gossip who's collecting the forms. They're all signed up as officers of statistics, so they're forbidden under legislation from divulging any confidential information that they collect in the course of their duties. And the CSO guarantees the confidentiality of all census data. So the data comes into us as individual identifiable data, and it only ever leaves the CSO in the form of statistical tables or for statistical analysis. OK. A listener says, I haven't got a form and I'm not going to be ringing looking for one. What are you supposed to do if you haven't received a form? Just ring up and ask for one? I would really encourage that person to just pick up the phone or text the word form to 50400. The enumerators have worked really hard to get the form to everybody. It's an incredibly tough job, and they're just Trojan workers. So, whoever that caller is, they're obliged by law to do this. The President has to do it, you have to do it, Matt, I have to do it. And it's a big national undertaking.
Okay.
And,
what about shift workers? If you're out on Sunday night, for example, if you're working in a hotel or a pub, or if you're working in a hospital or whatever, so if you're there overnight, where do you put yourself down?
So the instructions are on page 3 of the form for everybody to understand how it works. But in that particular instance, the guidelines are the people who spend the night in the dwelling are those who arrive the next morning not having been enumerated elsewhere. So if you're on the night shift, you come home the following morning, you put yourself down on the census form. All right.
One final question to you. There's a question in relation to religion. When people answer that, are they expected to answer what the religion they were born into that their parents gave them, or what religion they subscribe to now, if any?
So our message to people is that everybody should answer the question whether they have a religious belief or they don't. And we're saying that you're to answer the question according to how you feel about your religious beliefs or lack thereof today. It's not about the religion you were born into. It's about your religious beliefs today.
Okay, thank you very much for joining us, Deirdre Cullen from the CSO. David Quinn from the Iona Institute. If you only go into a church for weddings and funerals, but you were born Catholic, should you put yourself down as Catholic on the census, or should you put yourself down as no religion?
Well, if I wasn't practising and I only turned up to church for funerals and weddings, as you say, I would put down no religion. But a lot of people seem to answer that they are Catholic or Church of Ireland or whatever, if that's what they identify as. And even in the British census, I think the numbers who identify as Christian is about 63%, something like that. And the number who identify as no religion, I think, was about 27% in the last census. So I certainly support the question being there, but I think people should answer accurately. And I think if you're only kind of darkening the doorstep of the church, as it were, once in a blue moon, and you don't really believe any of the fundamental core tenets, you should probably put down no religion. Okay.
Michael Nugent from Atheist Ireland. What do you think on this particular question, the way it's structured in the form?
Well, I agree completely with David, which is not
rare.
something that
this is rare and wonderful. We've brought the two of you in to agree on something.
Indeed, but I think the question is phrased misleadingly. It asks, what is your religion? And so that kind of creates the impression that there is a religion. It then gives the top 5 answers from the last religion, starting with Roman Catholic. But it leaves
those
out
the most popular, as in the last census.
As in the last census, yeah. And they say that that's why they're printing those, and then there's a box to write in other things because you can't print all of them because of space. But the second highest answer last time was no religion. So that should be second in that list. Actually, it's hidden away down the very end of the question. So we'd ask people to make sure that you go to the end of the question, notice that there is a box that says no religion, and take David Quinn's advice and take no religion.
But why is it important that you would actually have people saying that they have no religion?
Well, because the census data is used for evaluating how state services will be delivered. The Catholic Church itself says that it uses census data rather than its own internal data to evaluate how many Catholics they say they have when they're campaigning on issues like that. And really, the honest answer is just to be accurate.
Because, David, if the last census 5 years ago said we have 3.86 million Catholics in the country, I wonder how many of those go to Mass every week.
Well, actually, there was a recent RTE exit poll. It was after the general election, and it asked people about Mass attendance. And so of those who answered the poll, 34% said they go to Mass weekly or more. Another 15% say they go about once a month. So about half go, fairly regularly at least. So that's a lot, actually. It's a bit more than I thought. Then it asked them they could tick the option atheist, agnostic or spiritual, but not religious. So the number who said that they were atheist was 4%. The number who said they're agnostic was 1%. And the number who said spiritual but not religious was 9%. So even if you say not religious, it doesn't necessarily mean you have no religious beliefs. It means you don't belong to a particular church or organised religion, Islam, Hinduism. But it doesn't mean that you don't believe in God or some version of God, because otherwise you wouldn't have had 9% in the exit poll saying spiritual, not religious.
So no religion doesn't actually capture what people are, so does it?
Of course it does. And again, I find myself agreeing with David. that the question is so poorly phrased that you can't really evaluate anything proper from it.
Well, you can.
So no religion, certainly no religion could include people that are, as David says, spiritual. But you can take it that the majority, just by common sense, the majority of people who say no religion are likely to be atheist. And you can also take it, given that we know from other polls that 10% of Roman Catholics, self-identified Roman Catholics, say that they don't believe in God. The amount of Catholics.
What? Hang on. How can you be a Catholic and not believe in God?
Well, this is a difficult question to answer. I presume it's what they call one of the great mysteries. But when the Catholic Church themselves commissioned opinion polls during the time of the Eucharistic Congress here, 10% of self-identified Catholics said that they don't believe in God.
Yeah, I mean that's bizarre, and I can't explain it. It just goes to show you, with opinion polls, you've got to approach them with a certain grain of salt, no matter what the opinion poll is about, because you don't. What are people actually answering in their heads? Nonetheless, I come back to this RTE exit poll. It was a representative sample of voters, and only 4% said they're atheists, and more than twice that number said they are spiritual but not religious. So people, when they're answering these things, it appears that what they're saying is, I culturally, in some way, strongly or weakly identify as Catholic or Church of Ireland or whatever. The British Census question, by the way, from 2011, it had the same thing, but it had no religion right up at the top. So even though that wasn't the most popular answer, Christian was the most popular answer, no religion was right up the top. And I think about 27% ticked that box. And that's a much more secular country than we are. I'd have thought 27%. I would have thought you'd have got a higher figure. And you'd have imagined when it was right up the top, it would have been kind of tempting people to answer it. Nonetheless, 27%.
Okay, I think the main thing is, whatever these things, what we need is an accurate estimate of the number of Catholics, the number of non-religious, insofar as you can with the census wording. And the best way to get that is to take the joint advice of myself and David Quinn and tick no religion if you're not religious.
I've got a tweet here from David Cochran who says, Mick Nugent and David Quinn agreeing with each other a lot. He's asking, am I now available to conduct world peace talks
we do.
7 o'clock this evening?
We do disagree on how no religion should be interpreted.
Yeah, we also agree that Leicester should win the league.
Stop. We're not talking about miracles now at this stage. I'm Catholic, says one listener. I don't have to go to church to prove it. Another one says, I don't go to Mass every week, but I do pray. I'm certainly Catholic. I would disagree with the man from Iona who says I've no religion.
Well, you see, I suppose this is why it is so hard to design these questions, to capture exactly how people are going to interpret them. Because there's a classic example. I think that is exactly how people are going to be approaching the census. So they're not agreeing with me or Mick in what it means to be not religious, not Catholic. They're saying, I am Catholic, don't have to go to Mass to be Catholic.
Okay, here's what a typical Irish one, Marion Mead, says. My neighbour put down no religion a few years ago and then kicked up in a merciful row when her son wasn't getting a place in the local Catholic school. Isn't that why we have non-denominational schools? But isn't that the typical Irish thing?
Well, we don't have non-denominational schools.
People put themselves down as something in the hope that they'll get something else, even if it's not the truth, particularly when it comes to schooling.
But when it's a census thing, I mean, it has no further consequence for them because their name isn't on it. It has no, consequence for whether they're going to get their particular child into the local school. So there's more of an incentive to answer truthfully. But again, your listeners are answering truthfully according to their light and saying, I'm Catholic. I don't have to go to Mass every week to be Catholic.
The Catholic Church will use the census figures. The Catholic Church itself says it uses the census figures rather than its own baptismal figures in order to argue how many Catholics they are when they're looking for those state resources for their denominational schools.
They don't use them particularly much, to be honest.
I know, you were going so well now you're starting to disagree. A listener says, Darragh Breen identifies himself as culturally Catholic but a confirmed atheist, says Joanne.
Yeah, I think he used it using language that we can't use it on the radio here when he was describing that.
I've come across quite a number of Catholic atheists. It's quite a common thing here as well.
Yeah, and we have 10% of atheist Catholics.
Yeah, so there you go.
Right, let's leave it. Michael Nugent to David Quinn, thank you both very much. In the spirit of peace, may you please leave us. We're back after this.
Keep up with The Last Word on todayfm.com, on Twitter and on Facebook.